My brother framed me for his mistakes while I worked overtime, so I exposed everything quietly. Now he begs for my help he once destroyed. I'm a 29-year-old guy who's always been the one people counted on. The fixer. The helper. The guy who doesn't complain, just gets it done. My parents used to say I was born steady, and they clung to that while letting my younger brother, Tyler, burn through every ounce of grace they had. Tyler was the golden screw-up, late to everything, irresponsible with money, but somehow still the one everyone smiled at like he was the son. I can't count how many times I heard, "He's still figuring things out, just be patient with him, you're the older one." When we were kids, it was small things, him breaking stuff and me taking the blame, him forgetting homework and me doing it for him. But as we got older, those small things turned into real consequences. I went to community college and worked night shifts to avoid debt. Tyler dropped out of 2 programs and still got praised for exploring his options. I was busting my back at a design firm, working 60-hour weeks just to get noticed and climb my way up. Tyler was doing food delivery one week, crypto consulting the next, and still somehow finding time to post vacation selfies from cabins he couldn't afford. We weren't close anymore, but I still felt obligated to pick up his calls. He'd always open with that easy charm, "Hey bro, you're not gonna believe the luck I've had," followed by some vague excuse about losing his job or needing a small favor. I'd roll my eyes, promise myself I wouldn't get involved, and then, somehow, end up doing it anyway. Because deep down, I thought helping him meant protecting the family. I didn't know I was walking toward a storm he started, and I'd be the one left cleaning up the wreckage. It started with what seemed like a simple favor. Tyler called me on a Wednesday evening while I was still at the office, chasing a deadline that had me running on caffeine and 5 hours of sleep. He sounded frantic, said he needed to register a work van but was having temporary issues with his credit. "It's just for a couple weeks, man," he insisted. "You've got great credit, and I'll switch it back as soon as my next check clears." I was tired, distracted, and honestly just wanted him off the phone, so I agreed. The next day, I met him at the DMV on my lunch break. He showed up in flip-flops and sunglasses like we were going to a beach, not signing legal documents. The van wasn't some clean, new work vehicle, it was a beat-up junker with dents in the front and masking tape holding part of the bumper. Something about it made my gut twist. I remember asking, "Are you sure this is safe to drive?" And he laughed, "It's not a date, bro, it just has to run." Against my better judgment, I signed the papers, handed over my ID, and let it go. A week later, I got the first toll ticket in the mail. I figured it was a fluke, maybe a missed payment. Then came another. And another. The van was clocking routes all over the state, routes I definitely wasn't driving. I called Tyler and asked him about it, but his tone changed instantly. "Relax, it's just part of the job. I'll cover it," he said, like it was no big deal. But it felt like a big deal. Something wasn't adding up. And for the first time, I started wondering what else he was dragging my name into. The third letter didn't look like a ticket. It was thicker, more official, with bold red print that made my stomach drop the second I saw it through my mail slot. It was a notice from an insurance company I'd never contacted, addressing me as the registered owner of a vehicle involved in a collision. According to the report, the van had sideswiped another car late at night and fled the scene. I stood there in my hallway, fluorescent light buzzing overhead, rereading the words like they might rearrange themselves into something less terrifying. I called Tyler immediately, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. "Did you crash the van?" I asked, trying to stay level, trying not to sound like I already knew the answer. There was a long pause, then a scoff. "You're overreacting. Some idiot must have clipped it while it was parked," he said, voice lazy, dismissive. I wanted to believe him, but my chest felt tight, like something rotten had lodged itself there and refused to move. A few days later, another envelope arrived, this one from a collections agency demanding payment for damages linked to the same incident. My name was all over it. I drove to Tyler's place, the city lights blurring through my windshield as rain smeared against the glass. When I walked in, I noticed a fresh dent on the side of the van parked out front, paint scratched, metal bent like it had taken a hard hit. "You said it was parked," I whispered, staring at it. He shrugged. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." "I'll sort it out," he muttered, not even meeting my eyes. But when I stepped inside his apartment, I saw a crumpled receipt on the counter from a local body shop, dated 2 days after the supposed mystery accident. My name wasn't on it. His was. I looked at him, my voice low, cracked. "Tyler, what did you do?" He opened his mouth, like he had an answer ready, but his eyes flickered away, and that silence felt louder than any confession. I thought the accident was the worst of it, until my boss called me into his office 2 weeks later. It wasn't a casual check-in. His tone was clipped, his fingers steepled together in that way people do when they're holding back bad news. "We've received some concerning information," he said. Apparently, another firm had flagged my name in connection with shoddy contract work I never did, under a job title I never accepted. At first, I thought it was a case of mistaken identity. But then he slid a manila folder across the desk. Inside were documents, freelance project proposals, poorly completed blueprints, and emails signed with my name. And not just my name, my license number, my credentials, and my business profile. The logo I had designed for my portfolio was stamped on one of the reports like a mockery. I felt the blood leave my face. "I didn't submit any of this," I said quietly. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I believe you. But our legal department needs clarity. If your name's involved, it's our liability too." That night, I didn't sleep. I paced my apartment like a caged animal, scrolling through old messages, looking for a crack I hadn't noticed before. And then it hit me, 6 months ago, Tyler had asked for help updating his resume and needed access to some design samples. I'd emailed him a zip file that included my licensing info and portfolio files, thinking nothing of it. Back then, I believed he just wanted to get his life together. I called him, my voice barely holding together. "Did you use my credentials to get freelance work?" There was silence, then a familiar deflection. "You weren't using that stuff anyway. You've got a real job." I just needed something to get through the door. I sat down on the floor, phone still pressed to my ear, feeling everything I'd worked for begin to crack under someone else's choices. I didn't text. I didn't call. I drove straight to Tyler's apartment the next evening, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my neck. The air was thick with late summer heat, and my fists clenched as I climbed the stairs 2 at a time. When he opened the door, he was barefoot, holding a half-eaten bag of chips, like my life wasn't crumbling because of him. "Whoa, you good?" he asked, like I had just shown up for a chat. I shoved the printed emails into his hands, contracts, timestamps, screenshots. "You stole my identity," I said, trying to keep my voice from breaking. "You faked work under my license, then crashed a car under my name. What the hell is wrong with you?" His smirk faltered as he flipped through the pages. "It's not that serious, man," he muttered. "I was just trying to get on my feet. You make this crap look easy." "Easy?" I snapped. "You think working 60 hours a week, eating lunch at my desk, and being one mistake away from getting fired is easy? You risked my entire career because you couldn't carry your own weight." He rolled his eyes, tossing the papers on the counter like they were junk mail. "You've always had it better. Dad never pushed you. Mom always called you the smart one. I just needed one chance to prove I wasn't a failure." That's when it hit me, it wasn't just carelessness. It was envy. Quiet, festering envy that turned into sabotage. And he didn't even seem sorry. Not really. Not in a way that mattered. I walked out without saying another word, letting the door slam behind me. But in my chest, something colder settled in. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was done making excuses for him. And I knew this time, I wasn't going to clean up the mess. After everything, after the car, the fraud, the contracts, I thought my parents would finally see Tyler for what he really was. I drove to their house that weekend, still holding on to this fragile hope that if they knew the full truth, they'd be furious on my behalf. I laid it all out, every document, every lie, every sleepless night I'd had trying to undo what Tyler had done. My mom sat on the couch with her arms crossed, lips pursed. My dad rubbed his temple like I was giving him a headache. When I finished, my voice hoarse from holding back years of swallowed frustration, the room went quiet. Then my mother said, "Tyler's going through a rough patch. Maybe you should have helped him more before it got to this point." I stared at her, stunned. My dad added, "He's your brother. You have a good job, a stable life. Maybe let this one go, for the sake of family." It felt like being punched in the chest with an empty hand. No blood, no bruises, just the hollow ache of realizing they'd never truly seen me. I wasn't the son they defended. I was the son they leaned on until I collapsed. And Tyler? He wasn't the disappointment. He was the fragile project they refused to admit had failed. I stood up slowly, feeling like a stranger in the house I once called home. "You know he used my name to commit fraud, right? He stole from me. Lied to all of you. And I'm the one who needs to be more understanding." My mom just looked at me, eyes soft, voice almost pleading. "He's your brother." I nodded once. "Not anymore." I walked out without looking back, something breaking clean inside me. The kind of break that doesn't bleed, it just stops carrying weight. After that conversation, something in me shut down. I didn't return texts. I stopped answering calls, even from people who meant well. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was exhausted in a way I couldn't explain. Every room felt too loud, every conversation too fake. I started going straight home after work, locking the door behind me like the world couldn't touch me if I just stayed small enough. But even inside those walls, I wasn't safe from the mess Tyler made. Debt collectors kept calling about the crash. Insurance flagged my account and refused to renew my coverage until the case was cleared. My company paused my contract renewal pending resolution, which felt like corporate speak for "we don't want the smoke." I was walking on glass, afraid any step might crack open the life I'd built with 10 years of hard work. And through all of it, Tyler was silent. No apology. No offer to fix what he'd done. Just silence, as if the chaos had evaporated with his guilt. My friends noticed something was wrong. Melissa, a coworker I used to grab lunch with, asked if I was okay. I shrugged it off with a joke about deadlines. Even when I wanted to scream the truth, my brother nearly destroyed my career and my parents told me to get over it, I couldn't find the words. Shame doesn't shout. It sinks. It lives in the silence between phone rings and the echoes of laughter from people who don't know what it feels like to be betrayed by your own blood. At night, I sat on my apartment floor with bills scattered around me like confetti from someone else's party. I kept thinking, how did I become the villain in a story I didn't even write? And worse, why was no one else surprised that Tyler had handed me the pen? The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. I'd just gotten off a long call with my company's legal department. They were still reviewing liability, which basically meant I was in limbo with no job security, no timeline, and no idea if my name would ever be clean again. I hung up, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the wall for what felt like hours. There were unopened bills on my desk. My fridge held half a carton of milk and expired takeout. My savings were gone, devoured by lawyer consultations and insurance fees over damage I didn't cause. I'd spent so long being the dependable one, the steady one, the one who cleaned up other people's messes, that I didn't know what it felt like to fall apart. But I did that night. I let the weight of it all pin me down, my brother's betrayal, my parents' denial, the career I might lose because I trusted someone who never earned it. I cried in a way I hadn't since I was a kid. Not angry tears. The kind that come from being tired in your bones. The kind that whisper, "What's the point anymore?" For a brief, terrifying moment, I considered disappearing, packing my car, driving until the road ran out, maybe never coming back. Not to hurt anyone. Just to finally be somewhere no one knew me as the one who always held everything together. But something shifted in that silence. Not hope. Not strength. Just the smallest flicker of defiance. A thought that whispered, if he's willing to drag me down, maybe it's time I stop letting him think I'll stay quiet while he does it. So I got up. Sat at my desk. Pulled out every letter, receipt, screenshot, and message. I wasn't going to run. I was going to fight, quietly, carefully, completely. The next morning, I stopped being the victim and became the architect of my own comeback. I wasn't after revenge, not the explosive, scream-in-the-street kind. What I wanted was clarity. Consequence. I opened a folder on my desktop labeled evidence, and started building the case Tyler never thought I'd have the energy to assemble. Toll tickets with timestamps. DMV registrations. Insurance claims. Screenshots of messages where he casually referenced using my name to help him get started. I made copies of everything, physical and digital. Then I booked a consultation with a lawyer who specialized in identity fraud. She listened quietly, flipping through my documents like they were puzzle pieces. When I finished, she looked at me and said, "You have enough to pursue both civil and criminal charges." I didn't say yes. Not yet. But hearing that someone else could see what he did, it cracked something open in me that I didn't realize had been sealed shut. Next, I submitted formal statements to every platform Tyler had used my credentials on. I filed fraud reports, sent certified letters, even contacted his most recent contractor anonymously, attaching screenshots that proved who really did the work. I didn't shout it from the rooftops. I didn't call my parents to say, "See? I told you." I let the facts speak, let the systems he thought were too slow or stupid to catch him finally catch up. Within 3 weeks, the fallout began. Tyler lost 2 job offers. One of the companies filed a formal complaint against him. His name was flagged for impersonation in a statewide registry. I didn't post about it. I didn't gloat. I just sat in my apartment, sipping lukewarm coffee while my inbox filled with apologies, from companies, lawyers, even the same HR department that had once questioned my integrity. And still, Tyler hadn't called. Tyler finally called 3 days later. The screen lit up with his name, and for a second, I just stared at it, letting it ring while the hum of my refrigerator filled the silence. When I answered, his voice wasn't smug or relaxed like before. It was tight. Shaking. "What did you do?" he demanded, like I'd just committed some unforgivable betrayal against him. "I told the truth," I said quietly. He exhaled sharply, pacing loud enough for me to hear through the phone. "You ruined everything," he snapped. "They pulled my contracts. I got flagged. No one will even talk to me now." There was panic under the anger, raw and unfamiliar. For the first time in my life, I heard fear in his voice, the kind he'd always made me swallow. "You ruined everything the second you decided my name was a tool," I replied, staring at the cracked paint on my windowsill. Outside, rain tapped against the glass in slow, restless beats. "I just stopped protecting you from consequences." He scoffed, but it sounded hollow. "You always take things too far. You've got lawyers now? You turning into dad all of a sudden?" "No, Tyler," I said. "I'm turning into someone who refuses to be your shield." After that call, things around him unraveled faster. My mom left a voicemail saying he'd been fired from another job and his landlord was threatening eviction. My dad texted saying, "Your brother is under a lot of pressure right now." Like it was pressure that broke him, not his own actions. Then another message came in, from Tyler again. This time softer. Almost timid. "Can we talk? Please. I need help." I didn't reply. I just sat there, phone resting in my palm, listening to the faint echo of rain and the slow ticking of my kitchen clock. For once, the chaos wasn't mine to fix. But the quiet felt heavy. And something told me this wasn't the end of his desperation yet. He showed up at my door the following Sunday. No warning. Just a knock, soft, uneven, like someone wasn't sure they had the right to be there. When I opened it, I barely recognized him. His hoodie was wrinkled, eyes sunken, voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. I didn't know where else to go, he mumbled, looking past me like he couldn't bring himself to meet my eyes. I didn't step aside to let him in. I just stood there, waiting. He started talking fast, like if he got it all out quickly enough, it wouldn't sting. I messed up. I know. I panicked. I thought maybe if I just borrowed your stuff to get one contract, it would turn into something real. I didn't think it'd spiral like this. He paused, rubbing his hands together like the cold was inside him now. I didn't mean to hurt you. The words felt weightless. Not because they weren't true, but because they were 10 disasters too late. You didn't think, I said. You never do. Because you assume I'll catch the fallout. He finally looked at me, eyes glassy. I just wanted to be someone, man. I'm tired of being the screw-up. And I'm tired of cleaning up behind one, I replied. He stood there, like a child expecting to be scolded and forgiven in the same breath. But I wasn't that version of myself anymore. I didn't know him comfort just because we shared blood. I can't help you, I said quietly. Not this time. There was no shouting, no dramatic slam of the door. Just silence, heavier than anything I'd ever felt. He turned and walked away, shoulders slumped, hands in his pockets. I closed the door slowly, the lock clicking into place like a final decision. And for the first time in years, I felt safe in my own home. In the weeks that followed, everything got quieter. The chaos that once filled my days, calls from HR, collections, lawyer meetings, slowly faded into background noise, then disappeared altogether. My company reinstated my contract after I submitted full documentation and legal letters clearing my name. I didn't celebrate. I just sat at my desk that day, looked out the window at the city skyline, and let the quiet settle in my chest like a long exhale I'd been holding for years. I didn't win anything. I just stopped losing. Tyler didn't reach out again. Neither did my parents, except for one text from my mom that said, "He's really struggling. Maybe you could just talk to him?" I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. I just didn't have anything left to give people who only saw me as a resource, not a person. I started rebuilding, not just my finances, but my boundaries. I changed passwords, closed joint accounts I should have shut years ago, and put legal safeguards on anything tied to my name. But more than that, I rebuilt something deeper. I stopped apologizing for needing space. I stopped explaining myself to people who didn't want to understand. I stopped waiting for someone to recognize my pain before I allowed myself to heal. Sometimes, I still think about that night I sat on the floor, drowning in bills, wondering if my life had already been decided by someone else's mistakes. But now, I remember how I stood up. Quietly. Carefully. Completely. People think revenge is loud. That it comes with explosions and screaming matches. But real power? It's silence. It's closing the door without fanfare. It's choosing peace over performance. Tyler is still out there, probably looking for someone new to fix his life. But it won't be me. I've finally walked away from the wreckage, and I'm not turning back.